Good evening. I'm Susan Riccio. I'm covering for Bill Kraut, Chairman Kraut. I'd like to call the Monday, March 18th, 2024 Board of Education meeting to order at 7:01 PM. We're going to begin by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand if you are able. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Hadlock, would you please read the mission statement?
My pleasure. The Orange Elementary School District recognizes that the education of each child is the shared responsibility of every member of our community. Our goal is to inspire and empower each student to achieve academic excellence, embrace social and individual responsibility, and lead with integrity. We believe all individuals should be valued and treated with respect, and together we will make a difference.
Thank you, Mrs. Hadlock. There is no public participation this evening. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I'll need a motion to accept the first item under the consent agenda. The first item is the minutes from the February 12th, 2024 Board of Education special meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the February 12th, 2024 Board of Education special meeting? Betty? Carmen, thank you. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Scarpetti.
Thanks, Ms. Riccio. Good evening, everyone. I hope you and your families had an enjoyable St. Patrick's Day. Our students had a nice long weekend while our staff had a day of professional learning, which was shared in the board update. If you didn't have an opportunity to look at that, I suggest that you do because we shared some finer details of what occurred on Friday. And I also would like to extend our gratitude to Orange Rotary for providing us with a $15,000 gift. As we shared in past board meetings, but also at the Board of Finance when we presented our budget, we're always looking ways to support our schools, our students, and they were generous offering us a $15,000 gift to enhance our mental health support. And I've asked Mrs. Ito to provide more information when she's presenting. As I shared a moment ago, on Monday, March 4th, the Board of Education budget was presented to the Board of Finance. We extend our thanks to the Board of Finance for their time. We're getting ready to prepare for our next set of meetings that include the Board of Finance budget hearing on April 25th, the annual town meeting on May 8th, and the Orange referendum will be the week afterwards on May 15th. As a friendly reminder, we are requesting a 3.5% increase. The negotiating committee also got together last week. We are going to negotiate with two bargaining units, which are the custodians. The other bargaining unit is the administrative assistants, office aides, and paraprofessionals. They're part of one bargaining unit. And we'll be negotiating with our bus owner-operators also. An update with kindergarten. We have currently 115 students enrolled for next year. Out of those students, 10 have been received a waiver. I think there's about 7 more students that have, or not the students, but the parents are requesting a waiver, so they'll have to go through that assessment, and I'll update the board next month on that. And then in addition to the month of March being Women's History Month, it is also Board Appreciation Month. On behalf of our students, staff, and parents, I'd like to extend our gratitude and appreciation for your time and dedication. There's a small token of our appreciation at your table. Again, thank you for your graciousness to volunteer, which takes away, I know, from your family and profession in order to give back to the community. So we thank you very much. And that ends my report, Ms. Riccio.
Thank you. On behalf of the board, thank you so much for your generous gift.
And again, extend out to the PTO and A's that also help support with those gifts too.
I'm sorry. Do I have to say it again? Mr. Gray?
Good evening, everyone. I'll begin with a brief review of our grants. At this time, we are on the end of our ARP ESSER 3 grant, American Rescue Plan Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. This grant was an original allocation of $326,000. The primary use to date has been for summer programming. There's $96,000 left in that grant. We have until September 30th of this year to obligate those funds, and then January of '25 is when they need to be liquidated. We have our Innovative After School Grant. This is a $479,000 grant that we received, and to date, we have spent $359,000 of that grant. This has been used for innovative after-school programming activities in our schools. A Summer Enrichment Grant, which was an allocation of $299,000, and this has basically been split right in half, $149,000 per year, last year and this year, to run our summer school program. We have the Online Abuse Prevention Grant, which was a $30,000 grant. This was a grant that was in collaboration with the Orange Police Department, partnering with their SOAR program, which took the place of the DARE program, and it's Students of Orange Acting Responsibly. To date, we've only spent $525 of that, but just recently, there were a couple of functions that were community events that invited parents and students in, presented by our SRO. So you'll start to see that go down in future meetings. We have the Right to Read Grant, which is a $79,000 grant. To date, we've only spent about $9,000 of that. It's to be used for kindergarten through third grade, scientifically based, research-based, evidence-based literacy, teaching, and learning. Summer Mental Health Supports Grant is a $50,000 grant that will begin to be used this summer during our summer programming to support students in mental health. We have School Mental Health Specialist Grant. That is a 3-year grant. This year, we received 100% of the grant, $92,000, and that is to hire and maintain school mental health specialists, and then we have 2 more years of that, and the percentage that we get in the grant is going to be a little bit less each year, and we'll have to put that into the operating budget. We have the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security School Security Grant. This is to update our exterior cameras at all of our school buildings. That is an allocation of $61,000. I'm sorry, it's an original allocation of $200,000 to upgrade all of our cameras. We would be reimbursed $61,000 at the end of the program because we're at 30.27% reimbursement rate. We have the Connecticut High Dosage Tutoring Grant. This is a grant for grades 6 through 9, and it's to enhance mathematics proficiency through high dosage tutoring. And to date, we've spent $27,000 from our $156,000 allocation. And finally, we have a Primary Mental Health Grant, $20,000 grant. About half of that has been spent. Again, this is for a K-3 early childhood detection and intervention program for emotional, behavioral, and learning programs. So that's all of our grants to date. Facilities update. So we had our sprinkler inspections at all 4 schools this past Friday during the PD day when there weren't many people in the buildings. The inspections went very well. There were several fixtures in a couple of our buildings that were recommended for replacement based on age of the equipment. Otherwise, our systems are operating normally. And then finally, during the spring recess coming up in a few weeks, we'll be doing our next filter change for our HVAC equipment, and this helps to maintain our healthy indoor air quality in the buildings. And that's my report.
No questions for Mr. Gray? Okay, Mrs. Ito.
Hi. As Dr. Scarpetti shared, the Orange Rotary gave the district a gift of $15,000. These funds will be used to support students and families in the areas of anxiety, toxic stress, and bereavement, to name just a few of mental health challenges that our children and families are facing. The district has wasted no time in getting started with putting these funds to use. In fact, due to the timeliness of the funds, staff were able to begin training during our Friday professional learning session. Related service staff engaged in training on the use of the critical thinking triangle for helping students use their language skills to strengthen their problem-solving approach. This approach is used in the English language arts classrooms for teaching children a literacy skill and now can be generalized with our support staff for children to talk about their personal issues. Speaking of Friday's professional development, special education and related service staff, alongside their general education peers, engaged in district-wide teacher evaluation work, exploring English language arts, connections for social studies, and the writing workshop. In the morning, all paraprofessionals participated in a refresher for physical and psychological management training, otherwise known as PMT. PMT is designed to give participants hands-on and practical experience in handling a variety of students' crisis situations. In the afternoon, paraprofessionals were provided an opportunity to join us with the writing session. Preschool lottery families have been notified of their child's acceptance into our preschool program, and our preschool orientation for new families will be held this coming Thursday in a virtual format, which is March 21st, and the families have been emailed the link to join us for that orientation. On a final note, we've begun to plan our extended school year, or ESY, for our students with individualized education plans eligible for this service. Job postings are out, and anyone interested in providing instruction over the summer is encouraged to apply through the Special Education Service office. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Ito? Carmen?
You said preschool. What's the difference between the preschool age group and the kindergartners?
Preschoolers are ages 3 and 4-year-olds. So our preschool program is geared towards providing services under IDEA for children who are eligible for special education services starting age 3. And then we open it up to typical peers in the community who wish to sign up for the lottery and be selected to become part of that program as typical peer role models.
How many slots are there for the
We
likely
have,
peers?
for typicals, we have about 48 spots, and then we have 4, 8, 16, about 20 spots for special needs students that are spread out throughout the classes that we have.
Are all our schoolers in the Mary L. Tracy building?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to board business. Policy first read, Orange Board of Ed Policy 3120, Budget Development. This policy will be a second read at the next board meeting. Also a first read, Policy first read, Orange BOE Policy 5141.22, Communication/infectious diseases. This policy will be a second read at the next board meeting. That's all the policies we have, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Third item is the discussion of possible action on the increasing educator diversity plan. Do I have a motion to accept the increasing diversity education plan? You want to talk about it?
Well, I just wanted to say something first, and that is that, because it's not on here, the meeting, any information about policy meetings, or, I mean, the meeting is going to adjourn after this, it looks like.
No, we have a
Oh,
couple
it's not,
discussions.
it's not on the agenda. Okay,
Sorry.
well, that's all right. I just wanted to say that this increasing educator diversity plan was, we looked at it at our policy meeting and decided that it was something that the entire board needed to have time to review. We really didn't discuss it at all. We just received it and decided that was something that everybody needed to see, since we would be having to vote and approve it. And I'm glad that people had a chance to look at it. I hope anyone who had questions reached out to either me or Bill or Dr. Scarpetti.
And Ms. Riccio, if I may add something that, again, this is all mandated by the state. It's Public Act number 23-167, Section 10. The overall Public Act is called an Act Concerning Transparency in Education, so this was something that we were required to do. We did work collaboratively with BOA, Bethany Orange, Woodbridge, and Amity. And so the requirements that the state provided in the template, we did uniformity of all the districts. but except with the data, that was different and the action steps were different. And again, I also want to thank Mrs. Ito and Dr. Russo for their assistance on this too.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to accept the Increasing Education Diversity Plan as is? Okay, I got Renette and Betty. Any discussion on this? Any discussion? Carmen?
Can someone kind of highlight some of the, I guess,
I don't think I have it here.
some of the changes from the last plan to this plan?
Currently, we didn't have a plan. We had policies that were shared on that, on the form that you see in front of you. That is something that the state didn't even require. That's something as the BOA superintendents, we decided to include the policies because it kind of extended what we were doing. Again, this is just first, this form and this requirement is the first time it's ever been asked for districts to do this. Part of the requirement is the board had a vote on it. And this is why I actually had to request an extension on it because of when our board meeting was. I appreciate the guidance that the policy committee gave of saying, let's get this out for all of you to share and giving you enough time to review it. So there's no policy to review, but if you look at the action steps, it's really something that we've done as a district. We do have to document information with regarding our interviews and such that we have to share with the state. And once the board hopefully approves this, then we'll submit it to the state, and they may give us some feedback to make changes or not, or they accept it as is.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Have to ask, even ask for the others. Thank you. And if we have changes, Dr. Scarpetti, obviously we'll, if we need to revote on that later,
Absolutely,
we
I'll
can.
let you know.
Sounds good. Okay, number 4 on the agenda is a discussion of the possible action on the selection of the vendor to conduct the facility condition study.
So some of you may recall, not when we were discussing our 24-25 budget, but our 23-24 budget, there was a lot of discussion and parent feedback regarding the air conditioning at schools that didn't have it. As a reminder, Peck Place is the only school that has central air, and it only has it, and it doesn't have it in the gym and the cafeteria. Muriel Tracy has window units. Unfortunately, at Racebrook and Turkey Hill, it's only at the office and in the media center. And we've had to deal with some challenges when the weather's gotten too hot. Last year, we've had those discussions, and when we presented the budget, board members put a motion or had a discussion to say, hey, let's do a feasibility study to look at this. So since then, we have money to do this. We've asked for vendors to come in and look at our schools. And if, with your permission, Mr. Riccio, I'd like to have Mr. Gray present what our findings are and what our recommendation to the board to go with a certain vendor.
That'd be great, thank you. We're getting there.
Usually if you plug it in the bottom over there, it comes up.
Having a little bit of technical difficulties in the room. Online, you can probably see something, but in the room, we cannot yet.
There's more of a delay, Mr. Joe. I think there's something in front of.
With papers. Yeah, we have papers in front of us. Okay. Mr. Gray, do you want to start without the visual?
Sure. So what you have in front of you are two proposals from vendors. So what we did was we had a list of vendors, and we requested proposals from them. There were several of the vendors that we asked for an RFP from. We only received two. And this is for a facilities condition assessment. And basically, that's a building study. I think you've heard us using the words building study, but really, it's technically a facilities condition assessment. And what that is it's an evaluation of the condition of a building or buildings. And really, it's looking specifically at the infrastructure of a building, the systems of a building, and the finishes of a building. And what it hopefully does for us is it will point out any potential issues or deficiencies, and it gives us a really detailed understanding of the building condition. It also helps us to prioritize into repairs or upgrades any of these deficiencies or issues that come as a part of the assessment. And what happens is you then base that upon urgency, cost, and its impact on the overall condition of the building. So there are four components to what's called an FCA, or a facilities condition assessment. The first is your building envelope. So they begin at evaluating the building envelope. That means they're looking at the foundation, the walls, the windows, the doors, exterior trim, and the roofing of a building, the roofing system. Again, they're looking for any deficiencies or possible issues, leaking, air infiltration. It could be the facade where maybe the masonry is deteriorating. So they're looking for those types of items. Next, they move to the MEPs, which are your mechanical, your electrical, and your plumbing. So those are the systems of the building. So the mechanical is your heating, air conditioning, and ventilation. And what they're looking at there are all of the units as part of that HVAC system. So they're looking at your rooftop units, they're looking at air handlers, they're looking at dampers, univentilators. You've probably heard me use all of those words before. They're looking at the condition of them, they're looking at the age of them, they're looking at their efficiency, and they're also looking at the expectant remaining life for those items. And they do the same with the plumbing system and all the fixtures in the building. Next comes the interior finishes of the building. They're going to evaluate all the interior finishes, such as your flooring, your doors inside the building, the walls, the ceiling, lighting fixtures, anything interior trim as well. Again, all of this is done to find any kind of, identify any type of deficiencies or possible issues within the buildings. And it helps you to then go forward and say, okay, what's urgent? What needs to be a repair? What needs to be an upgrade? And eventually that becomes part of a detailed, comprehensive capital expenditure plan. Once they've done all these evaluations, and they do take quite some time because they really do go through everything, it's quite comprehensive, a report is generated. And that report will consist of all the findings, observations, and deficiencies discovered during the assessment. And it's going to prioritize those deficiencies in the report and give possible options for each of those deficiencies or the overall condition of the building. And then it's going to give probable costs for moving forward. Again, that's your capital expenditure part. So what you have in front of you, again, are two vendors that put forth proposals. Vendor A, you'll see, is $129,500. Vendor B is $107,000. When you look at them side by side, it's hard to kind of go through and say, okay, these match, these match.
Mike, excuse me, just to interrupt you for the board. The one that's a little bit lighter, which just has the bold of Orange Public Schools, Orange Elementary School Assessing and Planning, that's A.
Right.
And B is the one that says Professional Architecture Engineering Services for Facilities. So you know. So go ahead.
So They're written a little bit differently, but really essentially they're saying the same things. Vendor A has it broken up into several subsections. Vendor B, it's 3 larger subsections, but they all cover the same amounts of things. Basically, what I just explained to you is what they cover. And again, it's very comprehensive. They go through building drawings, schematics. They do tours of the building. Both vendors, by the way, did visit our schools. Dr. Scarpetti walked through buildings with them. So they have seen our buildings, so to speak, briefly, as part of putting forth a proposal. So tonight, it's about discussion and possible action about choosing a vendor here
Okay,
to
and
move forward.
Mr. Gray, based on yours and Dr. Scarpetti's conversations, as well as looking at what they're actually offering, do you have a recommendation?
So I think that we would be very comfortable going with vendor B, not only because it is a lower amount, but because the feeling during our meetings with them and then going through the proposal, it seemed to be a good fit, and it seems to be even better because they're close by,
Okay,
so that if there are any issues or anything, they're very easily reachable.
great. Thank you. Okay, so our job right now is, if anybody has any questions on this first, and we'd like to vote to accept potentially vendor B's to conduct the facility conditions study for Orange Public Schools. It's the lesser offer, which generally is, what is it?
Lower offer,
What did I say?
lesser.
Lower is right. Sorry, not lesser in content, but lower in price, yes. Any conversation on this? Betty?
Well, I just wanted to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like vendor B's timetable is much faster than
It's a
vendor A.
it's a little bit faster, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
By a
both
few
would
weeks.
include, recommendations that might suggest that it is not worth investing in the current structures and to perhaps we need to move on to a new facility.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I was remiss in that. If you do look at it closely at those, it does, there's a portion in there for restoration, restoration as new, and then there's a part in there about possible consolidation. So they do look at that.
We've talked about that for many years of, how our buildings are older, they're not, they may not be able to handle an influx,
Right.
et cetera. So it's something they're going to look at. We're not making any decisions yet. They haven't even stepped foot, or we haven't accepted a contract to even do the study yet. So,
Right.
question?
Well, I mean, the result of this can't be good. We have, I think, 3 buildings that are over 50 years old. And Mary L. Tracy, which is over 100. I mean, Susan went there.
Right, exactly.
So
Yes.
it has to be done. We tried to do this once before and stopped it. But, I'm not holding out a lot of hope that it's going to be good news. I remember when Mr. Gray talked about the fact that now we were cleaning out the air ducts, and we found out that it had never been done before.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad we're moving ahead with this.
And just so this board, I did reach out to Mr. Kapp as the Chair of Building and Grounds. He's aware of this. He saw both of them. And so he's been in the loop, and so has Mr. Kraut.
Any other discussion?
I just have a quick question. So, Proposal B says they'll start in about a month, and then between a month and a half to 2 months afterwards, they'll give us the review. So what would be the steps after that? Do we come together and make a decision on, what's the best option, or like, how do you?
What we've done, and again, I'll go by the direction of the board, what they would like for it to be done. As you probably have noticed, the system that we've done, we usually start at the subcommittee, what kind of falls under. So for example, the diversity plan, we started that with policy and introduce to the entire board. So what I'm assuming what's going to happen, Ms. James, is I will get this report, Mr. Gray and I, we could present it to the Subcommittee of Building and Grounds, and then they'll guide us what to do, of bring it to the entire board. But if that changes where it just wants to go to the entire board, that's at the board's discretion, but
We'll get the report and then we'll decide. Is really what it comes down to. So, any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, so do I have a motion to accept vendor B to conduct the facility condition study for Orange Public Schools at a cost of $107,000? Ken and Anthony. Thank you. Any additional conversation, discussion on this?
I just want to say I'm glad we're moving forward.
Thank you, me too.
and we appreciate your patience. Again, this was discussed at the last budget process if this was being implemented, so we just had to do our due process and have, reach out to the vendors that we did and finally get something to present to all of you. So thank you for your patience.
Okay, so we have a motion that's been seconded. No other discussion. All in favor? That's a unanimous vote also. Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, standing committees. Finance, that's me. Finance met prior to this. Mr. Gray updated us on all the grants again. He just likes talking about them. Cafeteria is doing fantastic. Seems like the children and staff really are enjoying them. Their numbers were the highest ever on average per month. We're in a favorable budget position right now. We hope it stays that way. Any questions on finance? Okay, we'll move on to Ms. Hadlock, Personnel Policy Transportation.
The Personnel Policy and Transportation Committee met on February 26th. We reviewed the two first read policies that were presented this evening. There was some new wording we added to reflect what we actually do here in the district, and some new language to bring up one of the policies up to date with state regulations and mandates. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or Dr. Scarpetti before the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hadlock. Did Mr. Cap provide a update?
He just was supporting vendor B.
Oh, good.
Just wanted to have that shared.
Okay. Well, I know he's watching us, so, hi, Jeff. Okay, Mr. Ziman, you're up. Curriculum Instruction Technology.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
We're still waiting for a final decision on our waiver to be allowed to continue with our own curriculum and reading program and not be grouped back with the rest of the state. Mr. Curry, the new chairman of the state legislature's Education Committee, early on suggested that there might be a remedy for the 25 or so districts whose waiver requests were denied. At the least, there was going to be an opportunity for those districts to state their case before a panel of educators. That no longer may be the case. To review, this came about, I was doing so well. This came about because there were districts who weren't following the science of reading, the current educational research, or even have phonics as a cornerstone of their reading program. None of these deficiencies describe what was going on in Orange. As a matter of fact, when I heard the goals of the Right to Read legislation, I felt it could have been copied from what was being done in Orange. If we're required to adopt a new reading program and curriculum, we will be forced to waste a lot of money to buy something we really don't need and divert money that could have been used to enhance what we are accomplishing. This is also the case with our professional development, which will essentially be stopped as we have to pivot to learn a new reading program and curriculum. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, and we'll be having a, oops.
Go ahead.
We will be having a meeting at the end of the month.
Thank you. Okay, ACES report. ACES met March 14th, last Thursday. We are continuing our budget process as well. We do it in stages. We end up with 5 or 6 different board packets for our budgets because we have many schools and many services that we have to ultimately put into the overall budget. We did have, Jeff Curry did come to the ACES meeting and did mention that everybody who applied for a waiver was denied. And he said there's nothing in the statute that says it could be waived. However, it's, according to him, this is what he told us at the ACES meeting, was that in the letter that districts got, said the state would work with districts on this. But we'll have to see that. And he also offered to come and speak to us if we'd like him to. So just a heads up. If you want that, let me know. I have his contact information. We have 3 schools currently that are under construction at ACES. Wintergreen has a large improvements that need to be done there. We just got it reimbursed for the purchase of the Wintergreen building for ACES, and we are waiting on the funds for the money from the state when we purchased ACES at Chase. That is also another large construction project that we're doing. And then the third one is 88 Bassett Road, which used to be the Gateway facility, and that will be ultimately a special ed school when it's finished, and it won't be finished until most likely 25 or 26. More to come on that. ACES has a career fair this Saturday, 9 to 11. People are looking for jobs, please come. The open choice lottery is in works, and that's going well also. Lot going on at ACES, and they're very busy as well. They do have lots of openings too, if anybody's interested.
Gala this week?
Yes, and the important one is that ACES is having the ACES Foundation, which is a separate group that provides additional funding and support to teachers to do extra things in the classroom. So not things that should be handled by ACES itself, but if a teacher wants to do a special project or do something different, it's funds that go to educators to do great things. So I'll be going to the gala. I believe Dr. Scarpetti will be going as well. I stumbled on that one. It's this Thursday, and should be lots of fun. Questions?
Go ahead, Patty.
Did anyone from Orange apply for one of these mini grants to enhance their classroom instruction?
The grants are for teachers within ACES.
Oh,
So the
it's
ACES
just in the
Foundation-
ACES
It's
Foundation.
just
Oh,
in
okay.
ACES.
All right.
It's a foundation that ACES set up
Okay,
of former administrators for people at ACES.
okay. I didn't
Yes,
understand. I
sorry.
thought we were all part of the area cooperative
We are.
education region, so.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
So did I hear you correctly when you said that, when you spoke with Representative Curry, he said that no one in the state that applied for a waiver was granted?
Yes.
Okay. So now I know that he said that they never said anybody was going to get a waiver.
Right.
But reading between the lines, did they just not give consideration to anyone's waiver and just decide to deny them all? Because it was simpler that way? I would like to ask him some questions, I think. I think that we deserve an answer for the work that
Yes, and
we
I did
put
ask
in.
that, I did ask that pointed question of, look, we prepared all this materials, it appeared that nothing was even looked at, and he said all of them were denied. And he said, but there is a way that the state is supposed to work with each district to make sure that their programs are sufficient. We did talk about the fact that, I mentioned the words that they hate to hear, unfunded mandate. And he said, that's, I hate to hear it, should I leave now? I'm like, that's up to you. But he stayed and he listened and he talked and he said, there is something that says the state's supposed to work with any district who feels that their program is correct. And I know we've been trying to, so, I can ask him to come and talk to us if we'd like.
I fear there's a disconnect between the legislature and the Board of Ed,
The Board of Ed or the
the
state?
State Board of Ed.
The State Board of Ed. And you're probably right. I don't know. I just told you what he told me
Yeah.
on Thursday, because I asked him that question. So, yeah. So,
I would agree, Mr. Ziman, with that. I think there's conversations, again, we shared with the board what Representative Curry said at the Cheshire Board meeting of saying there's no district that will have to do a program. I think, and again, I can't verify this, but I was told the state says he does not work for the State Department of Education. He can't say that. So there is this back and forth. There was a meeting I was involved in this morning with CAPS, the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. Fran Rabinowitz is our president, and she's still fighting the good fight. But it's going to be interesting where this goes.
right, the one sticking point they have is they don't have anything in writing that says you would penalize a district. However, each year, Dr. Scarpetti has to sign a form that says we're in compliance with all state laws. And if that's a mandate, it's a mandate, and we'd have to not be, which would impact money anyway. So, more to come, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's our last item, and so do I have a motion to adjourn? Carmen? Anthony? All in favor? Thank you all. Happy board appreciation.
Yes, thank
and
you
to
for everything you
everyone.
do for our staff, our students, and our families. Thank you so very much.